and your assumption was that by this stage in your life you would be complete. You'd be fully formed. You would know what to do in all awkward situations and public situations. You would be able to navigate your way through tricky life circumstances. You'd be able to understand everything that the bank sends you, and you'd have enough money in the bank, and that you'd have time at the weekend to be able to check your tyre pressure and other stuff that responsible, fully formed adults do. But then you catch yourself looking in the mirror now and you think, wow, that didn't happen. Because it was always only an illusion that any of us would ever arrive at a state of being complete, of being fully formed. The truth is we are being formed the whole time. There are a myriad of influences which flood into our lives, which form us, which shape us, which have the ability to make us different and to shape our future and our character and our personalities and the type of language we use and what we do with our time. We're being formed by a whole bunch of things. We're being formed by our phone and by the social media that we watch, by the news that we choose to look at or not. We're being formed by politics and the economy and the culture. You're being formed by the friendship group, by your family of origin. You're being formed by the weather and the geography of the location in which you find yourself. We're being formed by what we do on a Friday night. You're being formed by the things you eat and the things that you read or choose not to read. You're being formed by the things you hear on the radio and the cultural assumptions around you, by the wars that happen on the other side of the planet, by the things that go past your window each day. We're being formed all the time. And it's a process. It's not something we arrive at. It's not a one moment click. It isn't a program that you can do and then you're fully formed. It's a process. You know this. Think back to what you were like 20 years ago. If you met me 20 years ago, well, straight away you'd see that my jeans would flare out at the bottom and they'd be a bit wider, that my hair would have been peroxided blonde, and probably I'd have been a lot louder and a lot more arrogant and a lot less, hopefully, wise. 20 years on, I can see, well, my jeans have changed and my hair's now got grey highlights rather than blonde ones, but hopefully I'm a little bit more able to listen to people, and hopefully I've tuned into wisdom a little bit more, and hopefully I'm growing in maturity. But it's because of the things that have formed me and the people that have formed me and the way that I've been formed over time. And I'm not foolish enough to believe that this, who I am now, is fully formed either. I fully anticipate that the awkwardness that I look back at those photos from 20 years ago and think, oh my goodness, what was I doing? Well, in 20 years' time, I'll look back on a photo of today and think, oh my goodness, what was I doing? And that's okay. In fact, it's the point. If you look back on a photo of yourself 20 years later and thought, wow, haven't changed a bit, then that should raise red flags and ring alarm bells. We're supposed to grow, we're supposed to develop, we're supposed to mature, we're supposed to deepen and broaden, we're supposed to be formed all the time. This series of conversation has 3 foundation stones to it. The first is that we are being formed. That whether we like it or not, there are influences all around us, some big, some small, some in your face, some subliminal, that are forming us and shaping us and guiding who and how we are. And a key part of this conversation is to become aware of that, to not just allow it to happen to us until accidentally we arrive at a person that we don't even really like, but that we become aware of what's forming around us and we begin to exercise choice and agency as to whether we're being shaped into the person that we want to be. The second is that God always invites us to be formed in a whole way, in a grace-filled way, in a kind way, in a deep way, and often in a way which might be counter to the culture that is all around us. Maybe the culture wants to shape us in one way, for instance, and say, you're never going to be content until you've got one of these. But maybe the forming and the shaping of the character of God is to understand that you can know contentment and deep joy in all circumstances, no matter what is in your shopping cart. God forms us, and it isn't that He's forming us into somebody different, into something different, but rather that God is forming us into a more true reflection of ourselves, into a more true reflection of God. The third foundation stone is that we have the invitation to form everything around us. We're involved in forming and creating and recreating the world around us. We're involved in building a better tomorrow, or, if we want to, making sure that today remains just as toxic as we found it. We are involved in following the footsteps of a creative God. We're involved with continuing to form the world around us. You know that. You can see people around you that do that, and their effect is to poison everything around them. You've also witnessed other people who somehow form around them a world where there's space and grace and welcome for everybody. We are aware that we are being formed. We look to be formed by Jesus rather than just anything that is thrown at us in culture. And we choose as disciples of Jesus to actively involve ourselves in the good formation of everything around us. The truth is, though, that only Foundation Stone 1 happens without your involvement, without you asking for it to happen, without any effort on our behalf. In order for us to follow the formation of Jesus, in order for us to form that which is around us, well, that requires some effort, that requires some purposeful action on our behalf. And so this series of conversation starters is designed, well, it's designed exactly like that. That there are a bunch of conversation starters for you to take away with your interest piqued, to go into a conversation with friends, with other people in your car who you're journeying through life with, and just wonder out loud together. How is my phone forming me? How is that experience of grief from 10 years ago still forming me? How is ambition forming me? How did my grandparents form my parents who are forming me still? And to talk about that together and to check where I'm being formed in a way that I'm not happy with, or I would want to change if I could, to wonder where the invitation of Jesus to be formed differently might be, and to challenge each other and encourage each other and to cheer each other on in forming the world around us in the ways of good. Some of these conversations will make more sense to you than others. Some of them will rise to the top straight away as being of primary importance. Some, well, they'll just bypass you by. That's okay. Some will be easy conversations that you can enter into without thinking. Others might require deep work and actually might shine a spotlight on the fact that you've been formed profoundly in a way or by a person that you didn't want to, and so that requires some undoing. The good news there is that there is always the invitation from the gracious and able God to be formed in a new way that's whole and good. And so as you enter into this series of conversations, I want to encourage you, find a couple of people that becomes your regular practice to watch these videos whenever they're unleashed, and then to sit down or to phone somebody up or to go for a drink with somebody and say, let's talk about this. Have you noticed how you're being formed in this way through this channel? I've noticed it in me. How about you? How could we find God's voice in that together, and how could we form the world around us for good? As you do that, may you be blessed with the presence of the Master Shaper, who forms with kindness and graciousness and loving perfection. May the bits of you which you're not happy with, which you don't like, which are toxic, which have been poisoned, may they be gently scrubbed away by the potter. May you know joy as you converse with others. May you know a deep relationship being formed with others, and may you know as you try and form the world around you for good. Well, may you know the pleasure of the Father as you do that, and may you know the blessing of His hands on your efforts.